Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 2 of the Power Rankings for VDL-V Create Season 8. With me here is Miss Mag. Say hi, Miss Mag.
Hey guys, what's going on?
And Panda.
Hello, guys.
All right. But with that, let's just get straight into the week 2. So, starting off, week 2, we have the Bistro Bewares beat Rebellion 2-0. So, what are your thoughts? I'll throw it off to Miss Mag first.
I think this was just an unfortunate uh, sort of kryptonite of Lucian's draft is, the whole mono Kanto theme is like, you didn't have dark type in that era, so psychic types and side spam just kind of run through you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it was fun to watch.
Well, yeah, it's definitely sad kind of seeing them, like having no really good defensive pivots and just kind of being there like, I don't know what they could do differently for this because I think Magnetons are only psychic resist on their entire team.
Yeah, and Magneton's not going to take an E-Force very well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm on the same boat here. Like, it was an unfortunate matchup. Indian female and just no psychic resist was a real shame, but, still cool to watch.
Well, and in addition to that, like I think the Rebellion's team really likes priority moves with their with the
True.
Kangaskhan and the Blastoise that both came this last week.
Right.
But I guess we don't have much else to say. Anything else before we move on to the next one?
Not really.
Nah,
uh,
that's pretty much it,
yeah,
unfortunately.
it was a pretty
Uh,
commanding win, so not too much. With that, we move on to the Atlanta Talonflames versus the Crushing Silvallies. The Silvallies were able to get a 2-1 win. I guess throw it off to Panda. What are your thoughts on the match?
um, Urshifu is really strong.
Yes.
I believe, like, with the helping hand, it was picking up, like, KOs left and right. And since he was Scarf, he was able to like one shot and outspeed everything. Um, at least for the games he won. I think the game he lost, the Silvallies, I can't really remember what exactly what happened.
I believe they set up Trick Room, if I recall.
Trick Room, yeah, that makes sense since he had a scarf on, so he probably wasn't aware of that. But it was still a really solid game, and it was an interesting like because they both had psychic terrain, so two terrain teams going at it. It's pretty funny to always watch. So yeah.
And
Um, I'll just say that I think the interesting thing I got to observe about the Talonflames was that Crobat Runerigus lead, where like you're pressuring Tailwind or Trick Room, and then the opponent is really forced to figure out which way they want to play in your speed control, and it worked out because in a lot of ways I believe the Trick Room ended up going up versus the Tailwind, and you can't fake out either of them because one's a ghost type, one has inner focus. So I just like that sort of that lead was like really cool from the Talonflames.
yeah, I definitely really liked seeing Stonejourner doing some more work. It did a lot of work week one. It did a fair amount of week work this week. I believe it was Miss or Psychic Seed, Stonejourner, so it increased its special defense, which is normally pretty low. And in addition, Drugalgi had a very impressive survival. I think game three, where it took a power spot boosted expanding force in psychic terrain, and I was like, oh my, that's the thing's so bulky. And I think it was able
Yeah,
to,
I think it's like base 123 special defense.
yeah, something like that. But yeah, I definitely think that the games one and three, I think some had a very felt like they were very much in control, and uh, and so it definitely I think was a pretty good win, showing the strength of the Silvallies team.
For sure.
So any other thoughts on this before we move on?
I don't think so.
Uh,
Nah, I'm square.
So next up is Mad Rex versus the Migrating Melodics. So this game ended up being, I think, played on the Monday or Tuesday, so it was a little bit late. and the Melodics were able to win 2-1 in a very close set. So I guess we'll throw it to Miss Mag. Any thoughts on the set?
Yeah, I thought it was a really close set. Like, if you take away a lot of the RNG that happened, I think the matchup was a lot closer than like the video can really like prove to it. Rex does have that hyper offense type style with the Inteleon that he loves ever so much. And Brave brought a lot of, I feel like, good defensive tools to this matchup. Given that there's just a lot of offense coming out of Rex's team. So it was a good match. It would have been nicer to see it maybe a little bit less haxy, but that's the game we love to hate sometimes.
Oh yeah. So for anyone who's unclear what Miss Mag is saying by that, game three, turn one of game three, Rex ended up helping hand Muddy Water into I believe it was a Volcarona and a Scarf. What was it? The Scarf Latias? No. Spectre. Scarf left Spectre. And the Muddy Water ended up double missing. And so they ended up completely wasting their turn because both of their moves were used and ended up doing 0 damage. The Muddy Water
Right.
might have killed the Volcarona and would have done a big set of damage to the Spectre.
The Volcarona was actually Sash. Wow, then this was very unfortunate for the Spectre. The Sash would have helped him live. And I don't know. It was a close game though. One thing I would like to highlight, I think the choice band move along with Tailwind was really cool because that thing was killing a lot of things. And Rex does love his choice items, but yeah, the miss was very unfortunate. And it definitely sealed the game when it could have been a little bit closer. And then
Yeah, no, it was definitely a fun game. I know like Skunk Tank did a lot of work game one. There was like a lot of kind of variations in Pokemon, and which Pokemon were doing really well in each game too. So it was definitely interesting match that way. Any other thoughts on the match before we move on?
um,
That's plenty for me.
Okay. So with that, we can move on to the rolled gold pretzels versus the steel warriors. I guess I'll start with this one. So I know game one, Gumi led, I believe it was Lycanroc and Moltres, and the Steel Warriors ended up leading hard Trick Room, and were able to get Trick Room up pretty cleanly. And then game two, I think they ended up leading the same lead with the Moltres and the Lycanroc, and I think it was led into the Sun mode of with the Venusaur Torkoal, and it definitely ended up kind of being a little awkward in both leads in the match and kind of were on their back foot almost the entire game. It felt like. In addition, another thing that I found interesting was Curse Spirit Tomb, which I was very surprised of, especially because they cursed into a Darkmon, I mean a Ghostmon, when they also had Poltergeist.
Yeah, that was very unfortunate to see that. It seemed that Gumi forgot that the curse mechanic works different on ghosts, and the other 17 types actually get the stat boosts. Ghosts, that's too easy for them. So he ended up trading half his HP away when he could have just clicked the stab move.
I mean, Curse still got a kill. It killed a Mail Stick, which was kind of cool at least. But I feel like any other Ghost move would probably have helped him a little bit more. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said earlier, it was unfortunate with his lead options. He couldn't really, for example, he finished up the Trick Room, and that kind of ended up biting him up pretty badly, and things like that, which made it a lot harder for him.
So
But yeah,
1 second, real quick. Did Gumi think Curse was going to increase its attack, defense, and lowered speed?
I
um,
think so. I'm pretty sure he might have said that after the match, but even if he didn't, I feel like that's the only reason you would make that play if you clearly have Poltergeist.
Okay, well that makes more sense
yeah.
because I'm like that was a strange decision. But that yeah, it makes more sense that they thought it was just going to be a boosting move because yeah, it would have been pretty useful if it was a boosting move there.
Yeah, he could have at least potentially contested the trick room if that was why. I'm just assuming that maybe where his mindset was trying to contest the trick room by like with the curse boosts. But
Mhm.
it just like Panda said, like he kind of just got outled both games, and it's often hard to come back from that for a lot of us, honestly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Ah, well, that's fair. I guess with that, we can move on to the next match, which is the MK Mimikyus versus the Tentacruel Pirates. The Mimikyus were able to win a close 3-game set. I guess, Panda, what are your thoughts on the match?
This one was a little bit like with these game threes. There's a lot of RNG with them because I believe what really sealed it. I think he got a Yasha got a crit or he got something on him, and it really ended up sealing the deal. Like there's some kind of miss or crit, and DGS wasn't able to recover from that. But I thought what was cool this match was Tentacruel. Tentacruel was kind of nice. It was like a lot of icy wind spam, and it was immune to the snarl from Feeble, which is pretty good. Um, Feeble also was really good for Yasha, and it kind of showed why it's a really good unburdened user here. But yeah, another unfortunate RNG endgame, but it was an overall pretty good match to watch.
Yeah, I would agree. It seems like we just have a lot of RNG heavy sets this week in particular, but it would definitely was a good match to watch. And yeah, Yasha with that Feeble is it's kind of scary, honestly.
Very dangerous.
Well, yeah,
Very dangerous.
yeah, but this match was so long and grindy. I can't remember which one, but I think it was game 1 and 2, where it just like snarl, icy wind, snarl, icy wind from Thievul
Yeah, every single turn was like
and
that.
Tentacruel, and like nothing was doing damage because it was this icy wind, which is low base stats, and then everything else was being snarled, and and like it was so hard to tell who like the actual speed of the Pokemon, and like which ones were actually scarfed or which ones were just fast, because everything had all these speed drops or like unburdened procs, and so it was like it was definitely an interesting game because yeah, the Thievul and the Drift Bloom both had a grassy seed, so both of them had their own unburdened mons. But I definitely was, yeah. But I think the big one was, yeah, Thievul was definitely, I think, the star in uh, for um, for the Mimikyus, and I think was one of the big reasons why they ended up getting their win.
Yeah.
So I guess with that, we can move up to the next one, which was the Manchesney Park Slowpokes versus the Vienna Vaporeons. I'm going to start off with this one, and I'm just going to say, I'm sorry, Adam. The match was pretty flowed out. This was a pretty bad blowout. I think it ended up being 6 total turns.
A
Um,
10-minute match.
yeah, it was very commanding. I think the I think turn one of game one, it was a double knockout. I think with like a Blizzard, Choice Scarf Blizzard, and Play Rough. That got, I think, a double knockout, and then game two, I think, was there was a fake out, so it didn't, and then on turn two there was a double knockout from, I think, a similar lead. It was definitely not did not end up going well. Do y'all have any thoughts on the match?
Um, I thought Adam's swagger Lumberi Sceptile attack was cool, except when it didn't kill the Rapidash with acrobatics. That was really sad. So cool tech, but it didn't end up working. So rather unfortunate. But yeah, like you said, it was really clean, clean win for the opponent there.
Yeah, I think if Adam was going for more of like a speed run to fastest ending of a draft battle, he succeeded. But yeah, no, that miss KO on the Rapidash certainly didn't help his case, and in some ways shows a little bit of limitations of Septile itself. But the line on the Vaporeons had a very good showing this week, and yeah, they continue to see what they can do with the momentum.
Okay, I guess with that we can move on to the next match, which was my match against the Drowsy Dracozoids. I guess I'll let y'all talk about it since is I guess Panda, what are your thoughts on my match?
Um, this was a pretty fun match to watch. I think game three there was also some unfortunate RNG if I remember correctly.
It went
I'm
both
trying to
ways.
recap. went both ways
Yeah.
because I'm trying to remember the match completely, but I know the Celesteela
Oh yeah.
really went off.
So game three, what ended up happening was I ended up getting a lucky icicle crash flinch on the Celesteela, preventing him
Ah,
from killing my Paloswine. I then was able to get into a situation in which I pretty much had a guaranteed win if I just hit my moves, and I missed the high horsepower into the Salazzle, and that ended up
right.
costing me the game pretty much. So it's definitely a little sad.
I will say
Yeah.
that the life orb Salazzle was probably my favorite tech of that match. I am so used to seeing Salazzle run either Scarf or Focus Sash. It was nice to see it really being utilized as that offensive powerhouse.
Well, versus Mono Ice, with the Life Orb, I'm pretty sure it's one-shotting a lot of things. So that did make a lot of sense. But yeah, it is cool to see a more offensive set here. Um,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think the match was definitely very back and forth. There was a lot of variance, but I think kind of bounced out in the end. I think game two, I was lucky in the Slazzle missing an overheat on my Mr. Rhyme, which ended up being really relevant. And then game three, they in addition to me missing the high horsepower, they also got a crit on turn one on my Frostlass, which led to Frostlass dying before it could get a move off, which was very annoying as well. So it's like definitely a interesting match. I think I did reasonably well at making it close. I definitely think that I messed up a little bit on my final lead. I think I should have led Piloswine and Rotom because they led the same exact lead all three matches.
right.
Uh, Anything else on any other thoughts on the match, Miss Mag?
Yeah, just the fact that you took a game off of someone with Celesteela and Salazzle is pretty impressive because those are some of the more impressive mons, honestly, for Mono Ice.
Everything's
Two
impressive.
weeks in a row, actually.
Yeah, between that and then Blaziken and Corviknight last week, like you're making some
Yeah.
headway.
We'll see about this. I'm not convinced. I think I'm on pace for that nice '08 season. That's been
Oh,
inevitable since I started.
yeah.
But I guess with that we can move on to the next one, which was the Aloha Arachnids versus the Trixie Tricos. The Trixie Tricos were able to win in 3 games. I guess Panda, what are your thoughts on the match?
The Sea King set was really cool. Since the beginning, I wasn't very convinced with Otto's Seeking pick, but over here, he was just spamming Discharge next to it, and Seeking was getting special attack boosts, and it was actually killing things, and that was really fun to watch. So yeah, that was my favorite part of the match.
Yeah, that was definitely fun. It did so much work. I think it was game. I can't remember if it was game one or game two in which they did that combination, but it did so much work that game.
Right.
Yeah, it was nice. I did a little bit of helping KJ prep for this match, and I definitely, at least from a prep perspective, overlooked the fact that there was that discharge synergy, which I thought was a really cool dimension to his team. And it was nice to see Seeking like actually doing work and not just like spamming horn drill for once, like in previous seasons of the VDL. Um, but no, really, it was. We saw some like just really interesting things. There was a discharge synergy. There was a time that I believe the Turtonator clicked Shell Smash under Trick Room to position itself for a late game sweep. Like it was really nicely back and forth. I think just like a few different decisions would have potentially swayed this either in either coach's way.
Well, yeah, and then there was a lot of like just status flying around with the paralysis on the discharge and the spores on the munguses. And so like there was just a lot of like variants going around that just any slight deviation on some of those could have definitely switched the games completely around.
Yep,
Yeah. Any other thoughts before we move on?
I'm pretty good.
So with that, we'll move up to Miss Mag's match against the Bolden Bashers, in which they lost 0-2. I guess we'll start off with Panda. What are your thoughts on the match?
Um, we're having a kind of theme of some RNG stuff. I think there was a really big hurricane miss, I know, and there was a few other things that were a little bit unfortunate this match, and Goomer was able to win because of it.
Well, yeah, the freeze I think was the big one in game one, in
Oh
addition
yeah,
to the
yeah,
hurricane miss, which
yeah. I don't know how I forgot about that.
but yeah, and then game two, Miss Mag ended up going for the double protect, and Goomer ended up reading it and had feint on their Pikachu, so they feinted and got a massive. I think they ended up getting the kill, but they got a massive advantage because of that on turn one of game two. So what are your thoughts on the match, Miss Mag?
Well, my first thought is when next time I go to Vegas, I'm gonna take Goomer with me, whether he likes it or not. That's my first thought. The second thought is, yeah, the first game was really unfortunate. Honestly, I could have taken either a hurricane miss or not getting frozen, but getting both kind of really it didn't. It just I wasn't having fun. I really would have preferred to try to take out the Pissimian, especially because I mean, just the hurricane pressure into the fact that I brought so many of my fighting weak mons versus Goomer, like getting rid of it would have been so much greater. There wasn't too much I could do even by the time the freeze hit because in that end game I had already kind of lost like a lot of momentum from like all of my other mons being knocked out. So I was actually a little bit less salty about the freeze. Like long term, the hurricane misses really just made me unhappy. But game two, Goomer played it very, very straight. The feint really kind of messed me up completely. And in some ways, like if the first game had gone a little bit more in my favor, I feel like I could have made a better adjustment and pushed this into a game three set. But it's Pokemon. You're gonna lose to missing some moves in RNG sometimes. So still was a fun match. Thought I could face Goomer for the first time.
Well,
Like,
so I guess with the next,
small here.
yeah, I don't know. I think you had a good showing despite the O2. I think a little bit better luck or a little bit more neutral luck. You probably at least make it to game three, and have So I think it was a solid showing. But with that,
Yeah. Also, I do. Sorry, I wanted to shout out the EVLA Pikachu because I thought that was actually a really smart bring. Because the non-EVLA, non-bulky, like my Duraludon was like one-shotting most of them in prep. So props to him. That was really good.
oh yeah, definitely thought when I saw that in the thing that I'm like, that's going to be an issue for you because I know when I prepped a little bit with you with a light ball Pikachu. But with that, we can move on to the next match, which was the Queen City Quagsires against the Lake Erie Wishy-Washies. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't recall watching this video. Was there video on this one?
I don't think so, but I can recall it because Hippo did tell me about this game. Um, but what was unfortunate again, similar to what Rex did week one, Apple, he has a rain team, and he forgot to put Drizz on the Pelipper,
Oh,
and that ended up losing the game one, and that was really big. And game two, he actually adjusted really well and caught Hippo off guard, and he played really well with Zapdos, I'm pretty sure.
mm-hmm.
And then once Hippo figured out, there's no rain and there's no that, he could prepare for it, and then he won off game three because of that. So I believe, it would have been a much tighter set if Apple had Drizzle. That ended up kind of sealing the deal, I believe, for this game.
Okay, definitely an interesting match. You know, that's not the first time this season because I think week one there was a no grassy terrain on a thwacky that was designed to counter psychic terrain.
Exactly.
uh,
Yeah, it's like unfortunate when sometimes the games are won in prep because you just overlook these things like in the actual card battles. But I mean, it happens. We're all human. But I also heard of because I actually faced the Quagsires in week three, and they did let me know that they screwed up their abilities last week. So, or I guess for week two. So, yeah, it was kind of unfortunate.
Yeah.
But they still managed to take a game even with kind of having that little loss in momentum. So Good on him.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, definitely. But with that, we can move up to the next one, which was the Grandma's Togekisses versus the Scuba Squirtles, in which the Togekisses were able to win 2-1. I guess I'll start off. I know game one ended up being pretty convincing win for the Togekisses. They had Imprison, Trick Room, Chandelure, and so they were able to pretty much get rid of Trick Room the entirety of game one. And the Scuba Squirtles, for everyone who doesn't know, is incredibly Trick Room oriented. Game two ended up coming down to this really interesting game where Porygon 2 had Trace, and it traced Prankster from the Whimsicott and ended up having Prankster Recovery and Eerie Impulse, and that completely just dominated and almost it pretty much single-handedly won the Squirrels game three, and then game two, I mean, and then game three was definitely a very close back and forth. With in which I think it basically just came down to some good plays, some good reads, and like knockoffs on Guzzlord doing a lot of work. So I guess I'll throw it to Panda. Any thoughts on the set?
Um, yeah, Imprisoned Trick Room was really solid, especially for our Trick Room team. Put in work. And I thought what else did really well was the Man Chow. Able to hit that Porygon really hard, and Morpeko, and even knock off the Mirrorlex item and stuff was really good. Game two, yeah, the prankster Trace was really funny. You don't see that every day. I believe he even said in the video. I think his lead option was optional because he was going for like the Czar and Sunny Day stuff, and I believe the Chandelure was his best option both games, and I think that ended up working his game three too. So, but yeah, still a pretty cool match.
Yeah, I actually also enjoyed the Imprison TR Chandelier tech. I thought that was great. P2 just winning that game two outright is unfortunately just P2 doing P2 things. Sometimes I guess we've been talking about like RNG heavy sets. That's a even though this one actually did not matter so much, but it did change what possibly could have been a 2-0 into a 2-1. So Niels might need to start hitting up the casino. But I think that overall, like it was prepped well by both coaches, and still kind of exploiting a little bit of the flaws in the Scuba Squirtle sort of general game plan.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think one thing that I recall was I think the Whimsicott and the Whimsicott not having taunt I think was a big deal in game two because I think if it had taunt they probably win the game, but it had I think charm instead of it, and I think not only did they never use it, I think they ended up not bringing any physical attackers except for their Darkmon.
Yeah, the charm was an interesting bring there.
Uh, but I definitely think it was a good show or a good Scuba Squirrels got their first win of the season, but definitely show definitely they definitely need to hopefully get a couple more wins. But with that, we can move on to the final match of the week, which was Panda's match against the New York Metronomes, which was a really close three-game set in which Panda was able to get the win. I guess we'll start off with you, Miss Mag. What did you think of the set?
So I think the most interesting thing about this set is knowing the history between the coaches. That once I had overheard that Preston and Panda like prep together and do that stuff, I always love those kind of games. I feel like it's not then just about the Pokemon. Like it affects how you play. It affects how you prep. If you know that your opponent has a certain comfortable like tech or style. As far as the match itself, definitely a very close set. I really liked the showing from the Phalanx. That was probably by far my favorite part of the set, and you definitely chose the optimal times I would say to go for like no retreat versus like an actual offensive move. As for Preston, I liked his strategy into a lot of it. He's got to be the most conservative Urshifu player that I've ever seen. Being concerned about protects the whole match, so that was really interesting. I'm watching this. I'm like, wait, why is he so worried about protect? Like, you just wicked blow the Articuno. Like, you don't care if it protects it. I think it was Colbur though. But, like, it dies. You know what I mean? So I thought that was really interesting. But honestly, it was a good battle between friends. I will say that, and very much worthy of being the live premiere.
So what were your thoughts on the match, Panda?
um, yeah, so me and Preston have some history. He made my logo, so that's really cool. But yeah, game one was a really unfortunate lead for me because he had safety goggles or Shifu, and I let him grow Primarina. And I thought Primarina was this really good versus team, and it was a really smart bring for him to have the safety goggles there to hit me. And then game two, it was just phalanx things, fake out, and he fake out the arrow, and I get no retreat off, and that's for his whole team. And yeah, I'm really happy to make this tier five work, and it's been doing good these past two games, and I hope I can make it work more.
Well, definitely a fun match. But with that, we finished up all the matches of the week, and we can get to our official rankings. Starting off with number 24, we have sadly the Scuba Swirls again. Though they got their first win of the season, I still think they still have some notable team issues, which we definitely saw even in this match. Any thoughts on their placing?
Oh, well, they didn't get a win yet.
No, they got a game win,
We
not a match win.
Oh,
Yeah.
game win. Oh, okay, yeah, yeah. I was like, wait, what? Did we miss something? No, I guess it's pretty much been said. Yeah, like it's great that they did get that game win, but there is still some like a little bit of refining that can be done just to just add like something with like over 110 speed, even one mod, I think would do the trick. And I really don't think they're getting a lot of mileage out of that Shedinja. I think maybe they could throw that back in tier five to for something faster. So fine place to start.
Yeah. I said in the past PRs, this team kind of needs, I don't know, hard Trick Room is just not the best. As we saw earlier in Prison, Trick Room completely shuts down the team. And Talon shuts down a lot of his options too. Because, I mean, Porygon can only run Evilite, and I guess you can remember Herb on the Slowbro, I guess, but that's easily exploited. And I believe this team just needs some kind of speed. That's not just Trick Room. Um, and it might do better. But as of now, I think this placing's fine for it.
Well, yeah, I definitely think one of the big issues is that their team definitely revolves around and is completely needs to bring their tier five every week, which is not where you want to be typically in the Marpico.
Mm, right.
But we shall see. Hopefully, they can start turning their season a little bit around. But with that, we can move up to number 23, which is the Rolled Gold Pretzels. Mister, I'm gonna win this season. Any thoughts on this team and why they're ranked here, or Gumi in general?
Um, yeah, I mean, I know he said this was going to be a season, but so far, I don't know. I wasn't even with the original draft. I was a little confused on some of the picks, and some things don't really mesh well together, I feel. And the double O2 both weeks definitely show like why it's a little bit lower than it should. But what it has over the hard tripper team, it has different modes at least, which I think is why it's a little bit higher than that. Um, yeah, I think Gumi can turn it around still. It's still early in the season, but at the moment it's looking a little rough so far. But hopefully, it can bring it back.
Yeah, I think the Nidoqueen will be a Lycan Rock. I think that's the only other change that needs to be made to this team on the slides. But other than that, I do kind of agree with Panda in a lot of ways. I feel like the 002 was definitely not a good showing for this team. Sort of even like relative of a lot of those like internal composition problems. But yes, it does have more modality than the hard trick room team. I think the toughest part about this team is going to be like not only just really unlocking its potential, but just building that morale. Gumi did start off saying that this was his season and was very comfortable with the original draft, and it's already gone through 3 trades so far. So I'm looking to see where this team finds its footing.
Yeah. Well, with that, we can go up to number 22, which is Rebellion, one of the mono drafters, the mono Kanto drafter. They've also O2 -4. So any thoughts on them, y'all?
Um, there's a lot of pieces I like about this team, but like I think Kang is really good with the Blastoise, and you have really good picks like Dragon and Arcanine. Where it falls short, like we saw in week two, the very little psychic resist. I mean, you have Jinx and Magneton, but they are really frail. They don't really count as resist, so it's really unfortunate. Because there's some things you can easily exploit this team because it's mono Kanto. But what I like about this team, it's just, I think it has a little bit more synergy, which is why I have it a little bit higher. But also the double O2 they had, both games they had, kind of puts it down a little bit lower.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing. I like the team. I think it's fun. I like the theme. I also really like the trades that they did. I think Jinx and Rhydon, among others, are going to and the Pinsir even are going to provide a lot of good value for this team long run, and the Tangela as well for some redirection with the Shell Smash and with the Trick Rooms and stuff. A lot much better value than some of their other picks might have provided before trades. But yeah, it's having that one really exploitable weakness that at least 2 to 3 teams are guaranteed to have with the terrain centers is it's tough to overcome. So we'll see what they decide to do.
Yeah. And it also doesn't help that they have had to play. They're going to have to play against both Lele's and or Lele and both NDDs this season.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's just a rip,
Yeah.
man.
They
That's a rigged schedule.
Yeah, they got a little bit
That's a
unlucky
rigged
with that.
schedule.
That was common for last season, all the freezes he had.
Yeah. Yeah. But with that, we can move up to number 21, which is the Queen City Quagsires. They they're 0-2, but they do have only -2, so they won a game in both of their 2 matches. Any thoughts on their position and yeah.
I both their games went 1-2, and I believe in both those games he adjusted really well, and it showed that the team does have capabilities to turn it back. But it was unfortunate that his week 2, for example, he didn't have the rain, so that puts him a little bit lower as well because that loss. But I think the team does have the tools. He has shown is capable of winning. It's just needs to win now. But yeah.
Well, I have to face them tomorrow for our week 3, so I won't say too much.
Oh.
But I will say that overall, I think the team is a lot more cohesive than maybe even I first thought. Like in week 0 PRs, like he's just got like a lot of good pieces here, and I have noticed even just looking at his team and starting to prep for it, like there's a lot of good pieces here, despite the fact that he's starting to draft with the 2 tier 5s in the Rapidash and the Herdier. Um, the rain mode's very prevalent. The Lurantis is actually really obnoxious to deal with, even if I don't think he can like support it like the very best. It's usually a little bit better supported with Prankster. But I think one of the things I really like about this team is the Toxic Pro, because it plays nicely in just supporting the team with like fake outs, helping hands, encores, coachings, and also just like working in that rain mode. Kind of not take too many strong water attacks with the dry skin. But I do think they have a better win rate and good synergy, which puts them ahead of the bottom 3 teams. But they do have to kind of start pumping out the results before they move up in the rankings.
Yeah. And with that, we can go up to number 20, which is myself at number 20. I'm assuming one of the reasons I'm a little bit higher than some of the other O2 teams is I've had 2 pretty close matches. But personally, I rank myself a little bit lower than this. What are your all thoughts on my position and my team in general?
Um, well, I ranked you a little higher compared to other weeks because after I saw both your games, like you said, both really close sets, and just the offensive capability of Ice, and even you got still some synergy. You got the Trick Room mode with the Rhyme, and last year you have the Hail mode with Vicious Run stuff, and Darm has shown its worth. It's been really good for you, and I've liked what I've seen, the power of it. So yeah, that's why I've been here.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think one of the biggest things that separates you from the Quagsires is really just like I said, they need to kind of push the envelope in terms of like getting those winnings and in some cases that is also making sure that like you have the right abilities. I think your prep game is a fair bit stronger than theirs, which is why I think you're the best O2 -2 team.
Not according to rankings, but with that, we can move up to number 19. The Manchesney Park Slowpokes. They are 1-1 +0. They had a pretty bad loss this last week. However, they decided to make multiple changes. So let's see if I can recall these properly. So they decided to get rid of their Sarina for the Slow King. I mean, they decided to get rid of their Linoon for Subat, and they decided to get rid of Steelix for the Doug Trio. So I
Hmm.
guess we could start with what do you all think of their new trades and their team adjustments?
Um, I really like the Slowking trade. It actually gives him Trick Room, which helps out the pinch archon and the Qualitar a lot. Um, the Duck Trio seems, yeah, it's for the beat up stuff, for the Terrakion, that's pretty cool. The Swoobat, I'm not entirely sure what it's doing here when it doesn't get Tailwind. I guess what you can do is, electric terrain, and then you get the simple electricity boost, I guess. But seems, I don't know, I can't really see what the Swoobat's doing here, but I do like the other two trades.
Well, since I kind of helped out with these trades, I won't spoil all of Adam's spice, but I will say that the biggest thing he needed a damn trick room setter and at least imprisoned trick room. Like it was almost like the exact opposite problem that Niels' team has, where it's too focused on trick room. I think even in spite of him having like the Pinchurchin, like it's not good enough to have trick room bonds. Like you still need a way to maneuver in and around the trick room. So I really also like the Slowking Galar pick. The Doug Trio pick I also kind of like because I think prior to this he didn't actually have access to beat up, which is like I mean if you're gonna keep Terrakion, you might as well. I also think the Arena Trap is really annoying to when you pair it alongside some of his more like obnoxious mods like Grimmsnarl, and even the Slowking. It just kind of encourages him being able to take advantage of bad leads, which his team can do pretty well, especially with some of the strategies he's ran before. I also kind of agree. Like the Swoobat seems like a kind of an odd pick. It's very fast, which I mean, his team's not really struggling with speed too much. Like he has Noivern and Terrakion. So I can only just assume based on what he's shown us that it's just going to probably be there to abuse simple.
Yeah, but I definitely agree. I think the Trick Room seems like a big, huge add to their team, especially with the Pinkerton and Klotzer. And hopefully, with it, they can get a little bit higher on this ranking. But with that, we can move up to number 18, which is the Vienna Vaporeons. So, any thoughts on them?
Um, well, this team has like a lot of power. I think this week really showed it as it was a 10-minute game, 6 turns of just killing everything really. And I guess that's what the team does best. I still think the team has some synergy problems and this defensive, like you got, I guess your best defensive switch-ins are like Lando and Latias, I guess. But he says that you're kind of struggling. But the power is really there, and the really clean 2-0 there puts them a little bit higher than some, well, the one team, the team they actually beat. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that this week was a very good showing for them for sure. But at the same time, I do think there are some pieces of their team that could just be a little bit more optimized. Like specifically the Barbarical and the Noctowl, I'm really not convinced by. I do like the ice cream cone as like a one mon weather mode slash Aurora Veil slash Scarf Blizzard spam mode. Um, and it helps with the hyper offense well to actually have a mod that can set up something like a really relatively fast like Aurora Veil or get speed control. But I just feel like the Barbarical and the Noctowl aren't really going to be allowed to shine, but so much here.
Yeah, definitely can agree with that. But with that, we can move up to number 17, which is the Steel Warriors. So Steel Warriors are 1-1 +0. So, but any thoughts of why they're a little bit higher than some of the other 1-1 teams?
Um, I guess I don't know, their team is pretty strong for the most part. It is relying a lot on that mail stick for the sun, and you have a really good trick room mode. Although the team's a little bit predictable, it does the job. I mean, we saw what it did week 2 against Gumi. Both the Sun mode and Tripper mode show its worth, and the team just has some good tools, even though it's a little predictable. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like their team has a lot of power coming from it, and there's a decent, I would say, decently strong synergy with the just the general Sun Room theme of the team that a lot of the teams below this point in the rankings do not have. Like I look at this team on its face, and again, there's just very obvious things that I can see that it can do, and I see that it can do them well, despite like Panda said, leaning on the Meow Stick. Again, this one similar to the last team. There's just like a few pieces where I was kind of like, why are you here? Like the Whiz Cash is kind of one of those pieces. Um, and the Richard Drago's like all right on this team. I would say that, but it also is just it just seems just a smidge out of place. But the rest of the team seems very nice.
I definitely think that they had a pretty good win this week, and so maybe that's one of the reasons why they're a little higher. But with that, we get up to number 16, which is the Lake Erie Wishy Washies. Um, so the Wishy Washies had their one win of the season this last week. Any thoughts on their team?
Um, well, we couldn't see it week 2, so that's a little unfortunate. So we couldn't. I think it's a little bit lower as we couldn't see like what the team did. We know they won, but it was a 2-1 win, as we know. But since I helped build this team, I think this team is still pretty strong, even though it's 1-1. I think the Mammoth Swine has been putting a lot of work for him, just racking up kills. Shard, really good priority. This team just has a lot of good priority. For example, Extreme Speed, Shadow Sneak, Ice Shard, all good priority moves. And it has the speed and bulk, and I still think it's a pretty solid team, despite the record.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this team has a lot of strong modes. I said this in like the week 0 PR, for sure, and it seems like they're building upon like making the modes not like the most predictable and just really playing to the raw strengths of their team members. So it'll be interesting to see how they do for week 3, and hopefully we can get a video this time. That'd be great.
Definitely. But with that, we can move up to number 15, which is the highest ranked O2 team, which is Mad Rex, who's O2 -3. So my thoughts or my question for everyone is, why do you think the Rex is so high?
I mean, the team just has a lot of power. He ran both Choice Band and Choice Specs this week, and they're packing up a lot of only KOs. So I think just the raw power puts him, well, why he might be higher. People think it puts him above all the other teams, just the damage output. I think the defensive synergies of the team are still okay. I like the Road and Heat and Halo go together. They're pretty cool. And his Firewater Grass core, I think, is the most impressive thing here. It's pretty cool. Um, but yeah, he is 0-2 at the end of the day, though, so I don't think he can be much higher than this. But damage is always good to see, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like the team on paper is still very much like phenomenally very good. I think both the Firewater Grass and I even really like the Fantasy Core and the Rabombi Latios and the Bisharp quite a fair bit. But again, 0-2 -3, like he did pick up his first win this week, similar to the Scuba Squirtles, and there was a bit of tax involved, but at the same time, it's like he's got to start racking up some wins and really start showing us what this team can do to get him back up higher in the rankings. But I definitely believe the potential is there, which is why he's up at 15.
Yeah, uh, I think that's definitely the case for a lot of people's opinions because pretty very high for an O2 team. I think they're 6 spots higher than the next closest one. But with that, we can move up to number 14, which is the Beasto Bewares, which are 1-1 +0, and they just had their very convincing win against Lucian. So, what are y'all's thoughts on their position or the team?
pretty similar to the Steel Warriors. Like, the team has a lot of good pieces, right? You got the NDD hats, solid Arachnid, Trick stuff. Entei is really strong, and then Bird and Hitmonlee. Um, like you have strong Mons, but I believe it's just a little predictable. And there are some weird synergy pieces, like I mentioned before, like Leafeon. Don't know what's doing here, coughing, things like that. But then they hit a really strong win, and I think the team can still do well, and that's why it is this high.
Yeah, I think the win versus Lucian was very good for team morale. Like after the week one went as, in my opinion, as poorly as it did for this team, I think the 2-0 commanding win really can get this team back on its feet. I still agree with Panda. There are like weird, like the Leafeon and the coughing, just outright not fond of them on this team, and the team is a little bit, I think, more one dimensional since he has nothing to really like take advantage of either of those two. Like they can be modes if you acquire other pieces, but like there's no real practical Sunsetter for Leafeon. There's no practical like Regigigas or even Archeops to take advantage of like neutralizing gas. So I think I'll be curious to see how this team performs going forward and seeing if they might take advantage of making trades.
Ah. So with that, we have the last team in the bottom half of our rankings, which is the Atlanta Talonflames at number 13. They ended up getting a 3-game set where they just lost to the crushing Silvallies. So any thoughts why they're around here in the rankings?
Um, yeah, having one week one and having a really close week two shows that why they're a little higher, and especially since the Silvallies, good coach and pretty solid team, and like Ms. Mac mentioned, like the team has like a lot of bait things you can do. Like you can lead Crobat, Renucleus, and you want to stop the Trick Room, you want to stop the Tailwind, and there's some cool things you can do with the team. Like you have the Draggy, you have the Rhyperior, which is a really good Trick Room, and the fast mode of the Crobat isn't too bad. The Lele, Cinderace, and I guess Glaceon even isn't that bad for the ground types. So it has some cool pieces, but that's probably why it's ranked 13.
Yeah, I was actually, I'd say, reasonably harsh on this team in week zero PRs because I'm gonna be honest, there were just some parts that I didn't quite understand. There's at least one mon on this team that I still don't quite understand its role, which is the Dracloak. But overall, I will say Joe put on a good showing versus the Silvallies, and that it softened me to seeing more of what this team's potential can be. And yeah, it's a lot of baity stuff, but I've always said that like bait and cheese, like it catches mice, it can actually win you sets. So it's just about how good you are at piloting what you have at your disposal. And Joe put on a good show this week against the Silvallies. It's like that Crobat Runarigas lead is something that I don't think is easy to be able to have answers to, even if you can feel comfortable operating in whatever mode he happens to choose for speed.
All right. And so with that, we can get to the top half of our rankings, starting with number 12, which is the Alola Arachnids. Um, so any thoughts on this team?
Um, Yeah, I mean this team is I think it's a good place to put the team. Like you have some like really spot on stuff like Togedemaru and Moltres Galar and Comfy, those always do well. And you have a Munga Slowbro, which is a pretty solid triple core, and as we saw earlier, this team loves setup, belly drum is something you gotta worry about. The Mungus kind of helps with the Moltres too, nasty plot and things like that, or Shelf Smash Turner. So I feel like the Mungus is a really good glue piece here. Where the team falls off is I don't know. I think some picks are a little odd. Like I guess Cadaver, is a low tier. You can't really. I don't know what else would be good, but that's kind of weird. I feel. Or the Rotom because I feel like it has the same role as. Actually, I don't even know what role it has to be honest. But yeah. The only thing is like I think it relies a little bit too much on the Amogus or just the setup options. I feel like you can exploit pretty easily, but it's still a solid team.
Yeah, I can agree. I think this is a good spot for it in the rankings. I'm a little bit biased because I did actually help draft this team, but so I won't reveal some of this bias, but yeah, it's definitely proven that it is a very set up, capable team, and the Amoonguss offering so much pressure as a redirector in its own right with the Spore and the Regenerator. In fact, the double Regenerator plus the Comfy Floral Healing combo is really what makes this team so aggravating to deal with. It's just like a lot of setup and sustain kind of piling on top of each other. But at the same time, some of their picks are exploitable in the sense that they are either really frail, specifically thinking about like the Crawdont, the Graveloct, and even the Togedemaru to an extent can be a little bit frail. And there's not a lot of debuffing potential on this team outside of really the Moltres itself. So that'll be an interesting way how they can deal with some other team comps that can handle this setup or outright stop it and handle and chip through them a lot more efficiently.
Uh, so with that, we can move up to number 11, which is the Bolden Bashers. One of our two-time champions, who had a pretty good win against EU Miss Mag. And any thoughts on their placement or the team as a whole?
Um, yeah, I think this team's okay still. I think I had this team a little bit lower than this original ranking, but it did show its worth with like the Pikachu. Surprisingly, has been okay. Like even like Pikachu is pretty cool. The Feint tech is pretty fun to see, and the Simeon I feel like has been the highlight so far. It's just really strong, and yeah, and even Corsola. Corsola is also really good, of course. Probably highlights of the team so far, but yeah, that's all I gotta say really.
Yeah, I'll give it to Goomer for sure. I think this is a good spot for his team, like overall, based on like team comp combined with coach skill and combined with record, and how the matches go. I think 11 is perfectly fine. I actually had his team, I think originally for the last couple of weeks, a little bit higher just because I liked a lot of like the sort of subtle synergies and the ones that are like really in your face, like the sand mode and the trick room stuff, but I wasn't convinced with certain pieces like the Shuckle, or even really the Pikachu at first. But I mean, I can't deny the Pikachu any longer. It definitely it proved its worth. And yeah, Cursola's just broken. Cursola's broken. Don't let Goomer have Cursola ever again. It's broken. Nah, but all jokes aside, I'm looking forward to seeing how Goomer pilots this team further into the season. I do really like this. I've come around to this comp for
Well,
sure.
I don't know. I'm still not convinced the team's great, but I'm also convinced that Goomer can win with anything. So I think they're pretty reasonably ranked on based on that. Um, but with that, we can move up to number 10, which is the Tentacle Pirates, one of the higher 1-1 teams. Any thoughts on why they're one of the higher 1-1 teams?
um, this team just has like a lot of bulk and power. I feel like as we saw this week too, it was just snarl spamming, icy wind spamming, and it was hard to weaken this team even with all that. And I think what's cool about what this team was doing is using a lot of the low tier picks, like we saw Tentacle pop off, uh, or even Dual Blade, and yeah, stuff like that's cool to see. And I think the team still has a lot of cool tools. It just isn't as high because I think both wins and losses have been 2-1 and 1-2. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. I actually still very much like the composition of this team. I think there's like a lot of strong pieces here that they are using very holistically. Like they're not just sticking to like a lot of their higher tiers. Like Panda was saying, we did see a lot of their lower tiers sort of popping off quite a fair bit. I think my one, I don't remember if this is a critique I had in earlier weeks, but like my one real critique of this team is it's a little too ghost sweet for my personal liking, even with like the Heliolisk and the Scrafty. But I mean, that's just kind of is kind of what it is for this comp. But it's nice. I'll be curious to see how they go forward with improving this record.
Yeah. So with that, we can go up to number 9, which is the New York Metronomes. I'll start off because I'm gonna play them this upcoming week, and
Oh.
and they had a very good showing against. They had a really very good showing this last week. They, against one of the better coaches in the league, our number one ranked coach in our week one power rankings. And they, brought it to a game three match. In addition, I think their team is very good. So, they're not surprising that they're up in near the top. So I guess, Fanda, what is your thoughts on the team and the position?
I faced him, friends. He played really well, and the team is just really strong. Like the more I look at it, the more I really enjoy it. I think we mentioned it before, one of the best fantasy cores right now, and just the offensive capability of like Aerodactyl and Nidoking. Since I had that last season, I know how good it is. And Urshifu with that is really good, and even the Fire Water Grass core isn't terrible. I mean, besides Maractus, I think Maractus is like it's a cool gimmick, but I don't think it's coming often. I think Kingler and Heatmore are sleeper low tier picks, and one that's been surprising is the Metric. Um, it showed off week one, but which was kind of cool. But it shows that it can do something to the team. So I think this team has a lot of cool tools.
Yeah, I do like this team. I think it is still adequately ranked, like right inside the top 10. It is very defensively type wise pretty balanced. In conjunction with again having, I would say uncontestedly the best fantasy core in the entire league. Coupled with that blistering offense and even some good support pieces with the Lopunny and the Manectric. One of the things that I will say to Preston is just remember your Urshifu goes through Protect for future games. That's probably my biggest tip for moving forward. But like this team still got a lot of untapped potential, and I do agree the Maractus is a little bit odd, but I do like the fact that he actually has so many like he's got so many like protection abilities. Like there's Sap Sipper, there's Levitate, Lightning Rod, Storm Drain, Flash Fire. Like it's very rare to see them all in the same draft. So it kind of just adds like other dimension of like how he can prep against certain teams that might have super effective moves into his squad.
So with that, we move up to number 8, which is the Grandma's Togekisses. So the Togekisses had 2 trades. They got rid of their Unpheasant for War Turtle and their Quillfish for Mulga. I guess I'll start. I'm very happy with them getting rid of their Unpheasant. I don't think it was particularly useful on their team since they already had Flying, Stab, and a better Tailwind setter, and so I think it's good getting rid of that. I think having access to a bulky Watermon that doesn't have like the emergency exit stuff that's a little bit more supporty in War Turtle seems pretty relevant. Emolga I think is fine. It's pretty fast. It's good. I think its big strength is being able to do like discharge stuff with Jolteon. Um, things like that is probably its biggest strength. Fairly fast nuzzle, things like that. So what are your thoughts on the trades?
I think these trades definitely improved the team quite a bit. Um, it's cool to see the little cancel starters here. War Turtle also gives him another fake out mon because you're relying a lot on the man shell, but now you go bulky fake out mon, which is pretty good to have too. And Emolga, yeah, Emolga's okay. It pairs well with Jolteon. You can discharge stuff. You have a lot of wide guard users actually. You have 3 wide guard users to protect yourself from that. And yeah, it's also our first 2L team here, so it makes sense why it's higher. And the team is a lot of good stuff, so that's cool.
Yeah, I agree. Trades definitely helped improve this team. The War Turtle is just such a nice piece with like bulky fake out, yawn, all the basically I think it gets all of the same support moves that the Blastoise gets except for like body press. So like even like Life Dew is on the table with this team now. With some of the bulkier stuff, Life Dew might just be really obnoxious. I like Emolga. I've always had a soft spot for the Pika clones in certain ways because they all kind of do something a little bit different. Other than even just discharge spam, like he's got he doesn't have an actual ground type, but he has a more functional Disquake mode than he had before because he only had Jolteon, so I think that's pretty nice. And yeah, 2-0 record. He's earned a spot here at 8 for sure.
Well, talking about 2 records, we get to go up into a 1-1 record instead of the Drowsy Dracozolt. Um, Dracozolt had, their first win against me this last week. And I think they were like our week 0 number 2 overall team. So
Yeah.
definitely. So any thoughts other than that of why they might be above a 2-0 team?
Well, I faced this team this week, so it's a little awkward, and I think he's also on the call right now. So, or he was. Okay, that's good. But yeah, this team has a lot of good stuff. So, the good Celesteela Coco, that's pretty cool. They cover Cherry's weaknesses pretty well. Um, there's a lot of bulky mons with Swampert and things like that. It has bulk and power, and I think the week one loss, of course, hurt it a little bit, but week two it showed why some of his mons are really good, and good mons, good team. So yeah,
Yeah, I would have to agree. Like the team is still very phenomenally strong on paper, and having been the only loss that this team has suffered so far, and it still being a close game, that again, decision trees could have definitely made things different for either one of us. I think it's still worthy of being even above the first 2-0 team. That's for sure.
Yeah. But with that, it is not the highest 1-1 team. We actually have one more 1-1 team, which is the Miss Magical Marauders. So in addition to Miss Magical Marauders being the highest 1-1 team, they also made 2 trades, which was getting rid of Duraludon for Klefki and getting rid of Shiinotic for Flapple. So I'm going to start off with Miss Mag. What are your thoughts of being the highest 1-1 team, and what are your thoughts on your trades?
So my thoughts of being the highest one team is actually kind of a surprise. I figured I would be like maybe like nine, like closer to like 9 or 10. I kind of penalized myself just a little bit for the loss to Goomer, even though I think I did have a good showing. And yes, he did get lucky in the first game with some level of hacks. I also think I didn't play game two super optimally, and I could have played it better. Uh, Even though like there was no way I could have really known about the feint tech because he didn't reveal it in game one, but I still could have probably opted to play some things a little bit better in both games. So I was surprised to find myself here at number 6. As far as the trades, one thing that I did learn from the Goomer match is that, and even from fighting the Dracozolts, actually, is that the team, it's good. I like the speed tiers I had. I think Torrentee is a great at 121, but it struggles a lot with things that go even faster than that, and there are easier modes to do that with weather and unburdened. So I think the Klefki will be a nice kind of catch-all piece that gives me access to shutting a lot of those strategies down while also offering some good defensive typing to this team. And Flapple, I'm actually really interested to try Flapple. I've never actually used it before, so this will be fun. But to kind of get the keys to victory, so to say, I did have to take a balancing and get a lower tier Grassmon, and I think Flapple is a solid tier 5 grass type with a good amount of damage. I still get to keep my dragon typing, and Hustle is fun. And it also gets abilities that are not Hustle, so I can utilize it a lot better. Duraludon and Shiinotic did their time. I will say that much, and they will be missed. But I think this is better for my team overall moving forward.
I agree. I'm gonna be brutally honest. I didn't like your two little mons. I think these are a lot better. The Klefki fits really well in your team, like you said, outspeeding those higher base mons, speed mons, with a Prankster, Thunderwave, or Prankster screens to weaken things is always nice. And a Flapple, I feel, is doing a lot more than Shiinotic because, I mean, I don't know, Shiinotic has never really impressed me. It kind of sits there, but Flapple is more of an offensive presence. And I mean, you already have a lot of offensive mons, but Flapple is also good to have. Gives you a dragon and grass, and yeah, I just like the team.
So with that, we move up to number 5, which is the MK Mimikyus, who are are with their 2-0 season so far. Any thoughts on them being ranked 5 instead of maybe top 4, top 3?
um, I had this team a little bit higher in this actually. I think I really liked how he's utilized his terrain mode. Um, very defeatable, really good with Fini, and even how he's utilized what did he use this week? He had Stoutland. Stoutland had some pretty good showing. Stoutland's a pretty underrated piece with Intimidate or his stand mode, which I don't think he has used his stand mode just yet. But Stoutland working in both is pretty cool to have, and this team just has like a lot of cool tools. I feel, and it's worked so far as these 2-0. So yeah.
Okay, I guess with that we can move up to number 4, which is the Migrating Melodics, who were able to get their win in our 2-0 plus 3. Any thoughts on their team?
Um, Brave seems is good. Has a pretty solid fire. Well, I was gonna say fire water grass core, but the Velocin hasn't really done much, I think. But I do like the Vulcan Azu together. And like Garchomp is really good, covers both of them pretty well. And what surprised me is that Skuntank. He's got pretty good value for that low tier there. It's doing pretty well. And yeah, I just think this team is solid, solid team, and has had a very solid performance. So I think that's my time.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of missed that last portion of Yasha's team. So, but I will chime in on this one. I really like this team. I think again, like you guys were saying, like the lower tier mons, like the Skuntank, and even I believe the Volby might have put in a little bit of work uh, in showing is really nice. I also just think his higher tiers, like the Spectre, Garchomp, Azu, Volk mode, like those four just seem really terrifying to kind of deal with from a prep perspective. Uh, Honestly, the only real weak links I think on this team are like, I mean, Blossom is good. It would be better if he had like Prankster Son. Oh God, trade it to me. But yeah, Blossom's nice, and I think Skarmory will probably have its day at some point. But yeah, I really like this team, and he's been piloting it quite well. 2-0 plus 3 is nothing to scoff at all.
Definitely agree with that. But with that, we can move up to our top 3. And at number 3, we have Crushing Silvallies, with who are currently 2-0 plus 3. Any thoughts on them being here versus, possibly in the top 2?
Yeah, I mean, this team has had some debate in our PR server. A lot of people do like it. A lot of people don't. Well, not really a lot. Some think it's not as great because of, I guess there's some like synergy things that don't mix well together. But in this case, I think it's proven to work. Like week 2, he had Helping Hand and DD female with Scarf or Shifu, and your Shifu can't get faked out, right? And you Scarf Helping Hand, and you hit everything for your Shifu, and I think that's pretty cool. So I think he has kind of worked his way out of those weird synergy pieces, and he has the tools to do it. Like, and also we've seen the Stone Runner pop off. I think the Surge Runner has been a really key member on this team, boosting all his big attackers like Urshifu, Paul, and DD. And yeah, I still think it's a pretty solid team. It's just power, and yeah, that's good.
Yeah, he's definitely coming into a bit of his own, despite the fact that this is probably one of the many teams that sparked a lot of like extreme controversy in the week 0 rankings. That power spot is just really disgusting with not only just powerful attackers, but like he's also got like a lot of really fast things like power spot next to Dragapult. Like it's already hard enough to outspeed Dragapult in general, and then you've got the Unburden with the Slurpuff combo, and then there's Scarves on like Urshifu and Ninetales, and even in DD. Like the Stonejourner has definitely put in a lot of work for a low tier, and I think that's probably my favorite part about watching him pilot this team. I do think like still on paper, the sort of the I guess the anti synergies is probably what's actually keeping him outside the top 2. But if he continues to be on this win streak, then I think honestly we'll have no choice but to kind of ascend him closer to like the number 1 spot.
Well, yeah. Uh, Giving everyone a little bit behind the scenes information. The reason why they're number 3 instead of number 2 is because a single coach decided to rank them as 11th best team rather than a little bit higher. And so I think the consensus is most people thought they were the second best team, but we had one that strongly didn't believe that. One thing that I think they've been doing wonderful this season, but the one thing that is a little bit concerning is that they have not brung Ninetales a single time, even though it is a very powerful mon and they're one of their tier 2 mons. And so it does show a little bit of the dysenergy that some of the people were concerned about. But with that, we can move up to number rank 2, which is the Trixie Tricos. Tricos are, also a 2-time champion and have started off 2-0. Any thoughts of their team or their ranking?
Yeah, I'm starting to like this team. I think every week I haven't ranked it as high as it should have because I don't know. I think there were some pieces I wasn't convinced on, like the Sea King, for example. But this week, it showed its worth. I think the team has a lot of cool synergies with this quick stuff, and there's a really nice piece you can help it set up with Blaziken and even Thunderous if you want. The Trick Room was okay, I guess. I guess the best Trick Room sweeper is like the Dragon itself, but it still has ways to do it, and that's definitely not very heavy. And the team overall just has some good tools, and it's been doing well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a good spot for Otto. I actually really do like this team as well. I believe I liked it pretty much consistently over the course of the weeks. I think one of the things that really highlights this team, other than the seeking that was mentioned, I think it's a really good Thunderous team. Like I just feel like Thunderous can do so many things here, like with Prankster and offensive sets that really support like all the members of this team pretty much well. And it's like Thunderous is a good mod in and of itself, but like when you build like a strong like sort of base around it, a sort of strong team around it, I think it just really starts to be able to shine.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. But with that, we can get to our number 1 rankings, which is unsurprisingly Panda at number 1 again. Um, I guess I'll start off. You are week 0 power number 1 ranking. You have yet to lose. It's pretty hard to drop you because of that. um, and in addition to that, you're the reigning champion, which also helps make it easier to not want to drop you. So any thoughts on your being ranked number 1 or your team or anything like that?
Um, yeah, I appreciate it. That's real nice. Hopefully I can keep it up. And I think the team has been doing pretty well. Primarina and Tyranitar have been pretty cool for me. And Fountains, of course. And besides that, yeah, hopefully the rest of the team can do well. And I'll keep it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know it. Like Phalanx broken, Sand Mode broken, Primarina broken, Persian broken. Like you just put together a nice crew of mons that support each other really well. I actually really liked the Articuno Galar showing and the set that you brought in your match versus Preston. Shout out to him for actually being the first person to take a game off you, I believe, all season so far. Because we could be looking at 2-0 plus 4. But they always say it's usually the ones closest to you that are the ones that are going to get you in the end. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic builds as the season goes on. But you've really crafted a really strong team, and it's you got a lot of tools at your disposal. I can't really say too much. I guess like the only thing like if I really had to nitpick is probably I'm not like the biggest fan of the Doug trio. That's probably the only one on your team I really don't like. But I've never been a big Doug trio fan in the general sense. But yeah, great team, man.
Yeah. So with that, we have our official rankings. Here they are. Any final thoughts about any of the rankings or anything to say before we sign off?
Um, I don't think so. I think it's been a pretty successful week. Some RNG heavy games, but yeah, I think every team has pretty cool spots, good spots.
I think with the upcoming rankings being the first or I guess out of division matches, we're gonna see. I think we'll see a bit of a shift depending on how those matchups shake out. Like where teams sort of pull away from some of these rankings. We also had a fair amount of trades this week, so I think it'll be interesting to see how we come when we come back a week from now to see what's changed.
Definitely agree, and I also think the first out of division week also can help identify which divisions are the strongest. So that also can tell you like if a team might not be doing great record wise, they might be a little bit better on the power ranking because they are just playing against some of the better coaches in the league. Um, but I guess with that, we can sign off. I hope everyone enjoyed. Thank you for watching. And as always, this is just our opinions. Hopefully, you don't feel too offended. But with that, thank you all.